just bring yourself into this space, and whatever's already happened today, that already happened, and what's going to happen is going to happen. And so just be fully present here and now. Two things I'd like to tell you about. The first is that, Joel, could you navigate to Canvas for me? I'd like to highlight this resources page for you. So you go to Pages and click there, and then you go to Resources, click there. And here, podcasts, environmental email subscriptions, YouTube channels, websites, eco-friendly search engine, all kinds of apps, mindful shopping. This is all for your, people are asking, well, what can we do? You might find something in this resources page that will help you figure out what you want to choose to do to make a difference. The cool thing about this is that if you find something cool, then tell me about it and I add it to the list. I want to emphasize that I'm not connected to any of the companies. I'm not trying to push any of this on you. They're just options and resources. It's a list that's been generated from past students that might help future students. So that's there for you. You can check out the resources page. Thank you, Joel. You can go back to the slide. Thank you. The other thing that I want to say, that I feel really compelled to say today, is that when you sign up as a student for a class, I think of that as a contract. I think of that as a contract in this way, is that you're choosing to be here for this class, and so it's my job to uphold the contract that this class can be a learning experience for you. If you have something going on that is not working that way, so if your TA has not put your grades in Canvas, if your TA has not been holding lab, if you have not been attending, there's two sides to the contract. If I'm doing something that's blocking somehow your learning and your experience, then I ask respectfully that you tell me about it. Tell me about it respectfully. It's a two-way street. Because if you wait and fill out the SRTE at the end of the semester and say, my TA didn't hold lab for 4 weeks, there is nothing I can do for you at that point to uphold the contract. So if there's something going on that's not right, that you feel is not right, then I ask, please tell me about it. I want to do the best that I can for you in this class. It's my job, and I love my job. The flip side is that I have to uphold academic integrity. So we need to walk that street together to make this work. So please be in touch with me if you have something that you want to share that can make the next 5 weeks of this course even better for you, for your lab group, for all of us together. So thank you for listening to that, and thank you for helping me to do my job, and thank you for being good communicators in advance. So I appreciate that very much. So where we are, the roof, what? The mic wasn't picking up? Obviously it's better. Okay, let me try something different. All right. Is that any better? Yes. Okay, thank you. So this picture is of Central Asia's Tibetan plateau, justifiably called the roof of the world. Its average elevation is more than 14,700 feet. It's the world's highest and largest plateau, covering about the size, 4 times the size of Texas. The tectonic forces have shaped this plateau. There's a website called Earth as Art, and I think that it's really remarkable to look at the world that we live in from the aspects of art. It's another way of looking at the beauty of our world. It's from the Earth Resources Observation and Science Center as part of the U.S. Geological Survey. This mix, this place where science and art and our natural world meet. It's quite lovely. So where we were last week is thinking about root causes. Our oceans are sickening, our climate is under chaos, under pressure, chemical contamination, habitat destruction, and pandemics. Pandemics are not going to go away for us. The way that humans are continuing to push into natural places where we haven't been before, it makes us even more susceptible to zoonotic diseases. So the more we are in contact, the more we are going into places where people haven't been, we're going to be exposed to things like the coronavirus, and it's going to shift and change our world. So if we fail to understand and care for nature, it's going to continue to rear up in unpredictable ways. Any emerging disease in the last 30 or 40 years has come about as a result of encroachment into wildlands. Wildlife trafficking, deforestation, and air travel have quadrupled infectious diseases in the last 50 years. So to give you a very concrete example of how this works, 4% of the Amazon rainforest is deforested, and it increased the chance of malaria by 50%. So when there's more of that edge habitat, we talked about that with the bird class, there's more of the edge habitat and more mosquito breeding habitat, then it means that it's increasing the incidence where the people and mosquitoes are coming together. Often in those cases, the small streams are disturbed, which creates pooling, which is where the mosquitoes breed. So in the Week 10 module, I've linked a number of articles that you might want to check out that are related to the coronavirus and what we're experiencing right now, and also what might be coming more and more in the future. The fact that the coronavirus is a symptom of this breakdown that we're talking about is so right, well, quite literally right in our faces right now. So my question for you today, and I think that many of you responded last Wednesday when I asked about what you see as root causes, a lot of you responded with answers that are very human-centric, right? People answering things like greed and consumption, ignorance. So I'm wondering if how those things that you responded tie into this question of, could it be that this world of wounds that we're experiencing is a reflection of some kind of inner disconnect? Whenever you think or you know or you believe, you're a lot of other people. But the moment that you feel, you are nobody but yourself. We are so unique in the way that we take these in. So, and this takes a lot of feeling. I've heard from a lot of you that this is hard stuff, that you're feeling a lot. And that's how we are as humans. So when we look at these pictures and think about this question, the world of wounds, a reflection of our own inner world. So I know that if I am sad, or if I am angry, or if I am tired, and I'm trying to parent my children, that sadness or that anger or that tiredness bubbles out of me, and it can be infectious. I'm not saying that you have to be happy all the time. There's very much of how I was raised in, well, everything's going to be okay. You just have to be okay. You have to be happy all the time. Bad things are going to happen, but it's going to be okay. So there's this balance of how we put our emotions out into the world in ways that we can gain support from others, but also knowing that what we're putting out into the world can affect those around us. So, can you say about separation? I'd like you to take a minute and reflect on this question on your page 96 for today. Just how might this inner separation affect the separation we're experiencing in the world around us? So take a moment of reflection, and when you're finished, be respectful of your neighbor. When they're finished, then have a little talk about it. What do you think? Anybody have any comments, thoughts about this? My theory here? All right, we'll dig into it a little bit more. What is important is that it's important to remember our breath in these moments when things might get hard or heavy, that we can breathe them through. It's really important not to hold that stuff in our bodies that elevates our stress. But by breathing through, we can be active in making change. So remember your breath when things might be heavy or hard. Remember that it's the opposite. If my heart is open, we can generate love and acceptance and appreciation for the world around us. So we do this to ourselves. Pardon me. The mood of unlove, a deep-seated suspicion that most of us harbor that we cannot be loved or that we are not truly lovable just for who we are. Not smart enough, not good enough, not interesting enough, not attractive enough, not strong enough, not popular enough. What happens for you when you look at yourself in the mirror? Do you smile? There I am. There I am. You're having a bad hair day and you're like, so it's my hair. It's doing its thing. Right? Do you greet yourself with compassion and kindness in the morning? Here I am, waking up. So is that how it goes? Or is it more like these people in the mirror? The idea that we are separated, separate from ourselves, separate from each other, separate from Earth. Is our true inner self really hidden? Are we portraying some kind of fake self as we move through the world and interact with other people? Can you imagine a world with no separation? No shooting, no greed, no violence, no racism, no sexism, no speciesism. It's so hard to imagine. Do you love yourself as your best friend? Do you love everyone in this room, your heart open to everyone in the natural world? So what does this separation from ourselves look like? It's tuning into our self-talk. Saturday morning and you have a date with yourself, taking yourself out, or staying in, snuggling, hanging out. Are you your own best friend? So what happens in our self-talk, our thoughts that run up here, it's about 50 words a minute, 3,000 words an hour, what's going on for us in our heads. Our most intimate relationship is with ourselves. So what is the tone of your self-talk? Is it like a courtroom? Is there a battle going on? Is there judgment going on? Prohibitions? Or is it more like a cozy living room? Kindness and hospitality? Our culture tends to teach us that we are not worthy unless we work really hard, and even then. So if we can't be kind to ourselves, then how can we really be kind to the earth and to each other? We talked about this, combating not enoughness with consumption. The feelings of not enoughness that show up when you use the words greed, you use the words consumption, how we combat these feelings of not being good enough is often that we consume lots of things, which has turned into not enoughness, turning into, for some people, this shopping addiction, right? It's a marketing opportunity. That's why more than $800 a year is spent on each one of us for marketing. You're not okay, but buy this and you will be. Consumerism increased during COVID. Can you see reasons why? So I'd like you to think about that question. Can you see why consumerism increased during COVID? And can you see how this might all be fitting together? I'd like you to take another minute and talk to your partner about this. What do you all have to say about this? Yes. Daria, if you have microphone right here. Thank you.
Boredom.
Boredom.
People were bored during COVID. There was no school, no work. People were home. Amazon was very frequent.
Very accepting. Yep, sure. Boredom. That's definitely part of the disconnect. Thank you for saying that.
I was a senior, so my parents simply felt bad, and if I asked for something, they were more likely to say yes, just because they kind of felt bad.
Yeah, right. Thanks for saying that too. My kid was a senior as well, so yep, I get that. What else? There's somebody in the back row there.
So my group were talking about how when we buy something new, we become really happy and obsessed with it for a while. And with COVID, there was really nothing else that could make us happy a lot. So buying as much as we could and getting new things that we were obsessed with for a small amount of time was just something that was a quick, easy way to make us happy.
Thank you for saying that. Yep. It's like a bright spot, right? In a really hard time. Yep. Yep. Anything else? I see it running. Okay.
I know also out of boredom, people were using their phones a lot more, and so in turn we were consuming more media and stuff telling us to buy things, and so there was a lot of trends and fads at the time, and people were just buying stuff to do them, have stuff to do.
Yeah, right. Yep. Thank you for saying that. Oh, I see you now. Couldn't figure out where you were. Thank you. Yes, I think that that's true too. The media really, it's much easier to pay attention to that stuff the more we are on our devices. Yes. Was there somebody up here? Yep.
I think we also saved some money from not spending money on transportation or spending money on vacations even, because that's a big expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
And we could make even more money if you were working from home, possibly. You could work more hours.
Yeah, and so you had more expendable income to spend on stuff. That makes sense too. So we've covered the COVID part. How about the normal days? The non-COVID shopping time, the empty hole, the idea that there's always stuff to consume. Does anybody have any just general comments about that?
Kind of going off of the last thing too, I feel like COVID was a great time, like we talked about, for the whole marketing aspect of things, and I definitely fall victim to this, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, but the idea of rebranding yourself and needing to be better than you were before. And I think especially during COVID, it was like, okay, we have all this downtime, so come out of COVID a better person, or like look better, or be a new person. And like that was a great time to like sell things to people because people wanted to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I see lots of nodding, some snapping. Yep. Thank you for saying that. Great.
I think in general, this is something I found personally. Recently, there's a lot of need for like short-term gratification. I found that 5 years ago or so, I'd spend a lot of my free time watching YouTube, and now I find myself even getting bored with those 5-10 minute videos and watching like the 2-minute TikToks instead.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's a similar thing with like consumption, how even if something, this was kind of touched on already, how even if something will make us really happy for like a week, we still find it as like a good investment at the time because we just want to feel like that little bit of happiness that that thing will bring.
Yeah. How many people? Yeah. Oh, you got lots of people on hearing you there. Yeah. Any final comments? Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, just in general, I think that stuff that you can buy and even the act of shopping itself can be a form of escapism, that a lot of people are really just not happy with their life.
Mm-hmm.
So getting something or even just ordering something can just be that little thing that can help someone get through a tough time or just provide relief from their life.
Yeah, or a little bit of excitement. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, thank you. That word escapism, it's interesting. Yes. Okay. Yes, one more. Go ahead.
I just think like the shopping addiction or like people getting addicted to stuff in general is just kind of like the coping mechanism for like not feeling whole within yourself. And like I know myself, like if I go buy a new pair of shoes, yeah, I feel good for like a couple days, weeks, whatever, but like it's not going to fix like how I feel about myself or something like that. So I think it's just like a never ending whole or a never ending cycle.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yep, you got people hearing you there too. Yeah, the never-ending cycle, that's interesting. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. So I'd like you to be reflective now. What are ways that you judge yourself? Living in this realm of not enoughness, I think your comment, several of these comments tie right into this. So where do you judge yourself? My example is that I struggle with the idea that I'm not fun enough. So I'm not fun, and so people don't ask me to do stuff because I'm not fun. And that comes from a lot of different areas in my life. I'm a mom, I'm a single mom. I have to maintain my job, I have to do my responsibilities, I have to maintain my household. And so I'm always working at something. And so taking time for fun can be really hard for me. And it plays in my brain, like, oh, it's Saturday night. Nobody asked me to do anything. Not a single person, and I'll just be here because I'm not fun enough. So how do you judge yourselves? What are those ways? I'd like you to really reflect, and if you can only get one or two now, then maybe come back to it after class. And then if you so choose, I know this is a very vulnerable point, but if you so choose, talk to your neighbor for a moment about your list or about something on your list, or talk about the fact you don't want to talk about your list, and that's okay too. I'd like you to take in this video.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's do this.
Scene 0, take 1. Mark?
So we've got one question that we want to ask you today.
Okay, well, what's that question?
The question is, if you could change one thing about your body, what would it be?
Only one.
I would change my forehead. I have a really big forehead.
I'd like to be taller.
The puffiness of my face.
My ears. I have big ears.
Stretch marks after having a baby.
A lot of times, like, kids would make fun of me, like, hey man, you get big ears, you got Dumbo over there, you know?
Definitely my skin, because I've dealt with acne and eczema issues ever since I was a little kid.
我小时候，因为大家比较喜欢大眼睛的那种美女，所以我就也希望自己眼睛能大一些。
Growing up, like a lot of people call me like five head, or like your forehead's so big. They've always like would say something to me about it.
Yo diría porque muchos todos caminan derecho y como que mi pie está un poco chueco.
When I was younger, I felt like I wasn't quite adequate enough.
Can you sit on the chair?
No.
All right, I'm going to ask you one question.
What's the question?
If you could change one thing about your body, what would you change?
Have a mermaid tail.
Probably like a shark mouth, so I could eat a lot of stuff.
I could have teleportation in my body. Extra pointy ears. I want legs like a cheetah so I can run faster like a cheetah. I could have wings so I could fly.
I don't think there's anything to change.
I like my body actually.
Yeah, you wouldn't change anything?
Nothing else. Just a mermaid tail.
A lot of people obsess about getting older and about the wrinkles. I love my white hair. I loved it when it started turning white. It's one of those things, because I chose to stay this way, because it just wouldn't be me if I totally changed the way I look.
Hey guys, thank you.
So self-alienation is an epidemic of its own that affects our culture. So where does it come from? We aren't born with it, right? Kids don't suffer from it. A mermaid tail? Heck yeah, I'll take that. Wings? Oh my gosh. So here we are, we're playing it cool, right? We're conforming, afraid to be ourselves in a lot of ways, and so it shifts our perspective of ourselves. If you think about being a teenager, or if you know any teenagers, playing it cool so they can fit in, pretending that they don't care about anything in particular, get praised even for being mellow. So this week in your journal, it's about silencing ourselves. How is that separation? What is it when we go small? When is it that we're afraid to be ourselves? It's the false belonging. We learn that if we want to fit in, we must split off and shrink down and make ourselves silent or invisible. So there are two articles. They're both challenging articles. One is a very sensitive topic, and you'll see the warnings about that in the canvas. Be careful in your choice. Be wise in your choice about which one you choose to read for you. We want to make it accessible. But the idea of all of this is, this was a sign that my dad gave to my oldest son. Don't try to fit in when you were born to stand out. The idea of conforming. The idea that we can use all of our equipment to be fully and completely who we are, comfortable in our own skin, so that we don't have to fill that empty void with stuff, right? So that we don't have to fill that void. You are important, just who you are. This class is about figuring out how you are going to move forward with choices that affect you personally, affect the community around you, and it's an environmental science class. The choices that we make always impact the environment. So how is it, that you can celebrate this fact that you are important? You are enough, just as you are. You belong because you are you. You don't have to do anything else. And yet, this separation, at this moment in history, humans are a dangerously insane and very sick species. As a testament to insanity, humans killed over 100 million fellow humans in the past century alone. No other species violates itself on such a grand scale. Only people who are in a deeply alienated state would create such a reality. It's a quote by Eckhart Tolle. Separation shows up like this, separate from each other when we can drive in to our garage, the gate, it's walled in where you have your separate room, you drive in your personal private transportation and spend most of your time, my time, indoors. The state right now is that 25% of people don't have a trusted friend. This isn't community. Somebody a couple of you actually brought up technology. This is a book that came out not too long ago, Alone Together. Technology makes it unnecessary to ask anything of another. Instead of visiting, we might phone or text or post updates to our friends. And like shopping, it doesn't really satisfy, right? It's not really getting at filling that empty hole that's inside of us, that void. And you're right, the addiction seems to have gotten more dramatic during the pandemic. Technology is how we were connecting more with other people, and more 2-minute videos instead of 10-minute videos. There are people in the world that do it differently. This is kind of an epidemic for kids as well. I wanted to mention, I know it's true for my kids. Getting them off their screens is an incredible battle. Drives me crazy. But there are people, these people of Guatemala, there is no separation. If their child is sick, then the family is sick. They get support from their whole community. If several people in the village is sick, then the village is sick. And the same collective consciousness is passed on to the land. It's impossible for them to say, I am healthy, but we're cutting down the forest. It would be like saying, I have a fatal liver disease, but actually I'm really going to be fine. That's just my liver. So this separation is all over. It's an epidemic, as I said. So we belong to something much bigger than ourselves. All my ancestors are behind me. Be still, they say. Watch and listen. You are the result of love of thousands. 50,000 generations of people before us. And so thinking about how they made choices, even today on my walk, I was thinking about how the devices that we use and the technologies that we use they're relatively new, right? They haven't been around that long. So how would people have connected even 50 years ago or 100 years ago, right? It still happened. People were still connected. And what about separation from Earth? As I walked here, the number of people I was watching with earbuds, and I'm not judging. I'm curious about what it is that they're listening to. You know, as I'm listening to the fish crows call and being, you know, the wind in the trees, and it's just an interesting way of taking in the world. Again, I'm not coming from a place of judgment, but a place of curiosity. What's that? So we've seen two images like this, the mall pictures, where you all had amazing comments about what this represents, the fossil fuels consumption and the greed and the disconnect. And so this is a direct line to our connection to the environment. So it might seem really out of place today that we're talking about self-esteem and how we view ourselves and our consumption, but our consumption is directly connected to the environment. It's a direct connection. So for us to be aware of that is really important and really helpful. So contrast this image with to this image. You know, what do you feel, going back to that slide earlier about you're only yourself when you feel? So what do you feel when you look at that image? Talk to your partner for a moment. Okay, Joel. Anybody want to speak to this? What does this bring up for you? So yesterday was the spring equinox. Yesterday was the spring equinox, the point which the day and the night are equal timing. It's a point of reconciliation, right? It's a point where there's an equilibrium. It's a point of change and shift. And if we're aware of how that is affecting our bodies and how even that 1 hour of time change can shift how we are feeling and how our bodies are working, It's really quite fascinating. So as we try to make meaning of all of this stuff, it's worth asking ourselves if when we build and produce and grow without limits, is it in the long run actually self-destructive? When does development turn from being productive to catastrophic, from sustainable to greedy? Although I believe that corporations are the biggest offenders, each of us can ask these questions of ourselves too. So we can use this clarity of the spring to clear out the cobwebs of the winter and start thinking in some new ways. Your pack-back question for this week is to comment on this quote. It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. E.E. Cummings. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you on Wednesday.
Thomas.